Grandpa left me $6.8 million. My influencer. Sister's jaw dropped. My sister Chloe's iced matcha latte hit the mahogany table with a wet thwack, splashing green foam all over her designer skirt. She didn't even notice. Her jaw was practically resting on the floor. Next to her, my older brother Kyle's face had gone the color of a bruised plum. He slammed his fists down, rattling the pens in the center of the table. "Read that again," he demanded, his voice cracking. "That's a typo. There is absolutely no way that old man had that kind of money." Mr. Sterling, an attorney who looked like he'd survived 3 wars and 1,000 greedy relatives, calmly pushed his glasses up his nose. "I assure you, Kyle, there is no typo. The total liquid assets amount to $6.8 million, not including the appraised value of the 40-acre property. And as per the will, 100% of the estate goes to your younger brother, Eli." Kyle turned his purple face toward me, spittle flying from his lips. "You manipulated him! You thief! You isolated him from us to steal our inheritance!" I just sat there, my hands folded, blinking at the sheer, unadulterated delusion of it all. They really thought they were the victims here, but to understand the sheer poetry of this moment, I have to take you back. I'm 28, and for the last 4 years, my entire world has revolved around my grandpa Arthur. Grandpa was a retired machinist, a Korean War vet, and the grumpiest, most stubborn man to ever walk the earth. He lived in a drafty, beat-up farmhouse, drove a 1998 Toyota Tacoma that was more rust than metal, and wore the same 4 flannel shirts on rotation. When Grandpa's health started failing, a brutal combination of early Parkinson's and a bad heart, my parents had already passed away, leaving just Kyle, 34, a crypto entrepreneur who lived on credit cards, and Chloe, 31, a lifestyle influencer whose lifestyle was funded by her husband. When the doctor said Grandpa couldn't live alone anymore, I called a family meeting. Kyle couldn't make it because he had a networking mixer. Chloe joined via FaceTime from a nail salon and suggested we put Grandpa in a state-run facility because he won't know the difference anyway. I didn't have a glamorous life. I was working nights at a warehouse and renting a shoebox apartment. But Grandpa was the man who taught me how to fish, how to change a tire, and how to stand up for myself. I packed my boxes, broke my lease, and moved into the farmhouse. For 4 years, I was his full-time caregiver. I bathed him, managed his meds, cooked his meals, and sat up with him during the night terrors. I dropped down to part-time work just to keep the lights on, burning through my meager savings. In those 4 years, Kyle and Chloe visited exactly 0 times. They didn't call on his birthdays. They skipped every Thanksgiving. The one time I begged Kyle to come watch Grandpa for a weekend so I could attend a friend's wedding, Kyle texted back, "Camp bro in Miami. Ask the old man to pay for a nurse." Grandpa never complained about their absence. He just watched Jeopardy, drank his black coffee, and quietly observed everything. Grandpa passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 months ago. The moment I called my siblings to break the news, the grieving charade began. Chloe showed up to the funeral in a black veil, weeping theatrically for her beloved papa in front of the extended family. Kyle spent the wake pacing the farmhouse, tapping the walls and muttering about property values. "We can probably bulldoze this dump and subdivide the lots," I overheard him telling Chloe. "Should be worth a couple $100,000, split 3 ways." I didn't say a word. I just let them dig their graves. 3 days later, we found ourselves in Mr. Sterling's office. My siblings were practically buzzing with greed. They thought they were about to get a $100,000 windfall. Then, Mr. Sterling dropped the nuclear bomb, $6.8 million. It turned out, Grandpa Arthur wasn't just a machinist. He had bought stock in a small local logistics company in the 1970s that had eventually been acquired by a massive global conglomerate. When he had been sitting on a fortune for decades and never touched a dime, preferring to live his quiet, frugal life. "There is one specific clause Arthur asked me to read aloud," Mr. Sterling noted, raising his voice over Kyle's screaming. The room fell silent. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. "To my eldest grandson Kyle and my granddaughter Chloe, I leave the sum of $1 each. I do this intentionally and with a sound mind, so they cannot claim I forgot them. You did not forget me. You simply did not care. $1 is exactly what a single phone call would have cost you over the last 4 years." Chloe burst into theatrical, shrieking tears. Kyle lunged across the table, and Mr. Sterling's paralegal threatened to call security. I walked out of that office feeling like I was floating. Of course, they sued. 2 weeks later, Di was hit with a lawsuit contesting the will, citing undue influence and elder abuse. They claimed I had held Grandpa hostage, brainwashed him, and forced him to sign over his estate. They hired a slimy, ambulance-chasing lawyer who sent me threatening letters demanding I settle for 75% of the estate to avoid public humiliation. I didn't panic. I used a fraction of the estate to hire Eleanor Vance. Eleanor is a legend in estate law. She wears sharp, tailored suits, never smiles, and operates with the cold, lethal efficiency of a sniper. When we finally went to court for the preliminary hearing, Kyle and Chloe looked smug. Their lawyer gave a tear-jerking opening statement about how I was a manipulative predator who stole a sick man away from his loving family. Then, Eleanor stood up. "Your Honor," Eleanor said, is her voice like ice. "We are not going to waste the court's time. I'd like to submit into evidence Exhibit A." She handed the judge a heavy, leather-bound book. "Arthur was a meticulous man," Eleanor explained to the courtroom. "He kept a daily log for the last 10 years of his life. In it, he recorded his meals, the weather, and every single visitor he received." She turned to Kyle and Chloe's lawyer. "You will find 0 entries for Kyle or Chloe in the last 4 years. You will, however, find daily entries praising Eli's care." Kyle scoffed loudly. "An old man's diary? He had dementia. He didn't know what he was writing." "I'm glad you brought that up," Eleanor countered smoothly, "because Exhibit B is a certified medical evaluation from an independent neurologist, dated 1 week before the will was signed. I declaring Arthur to be in perfect cognitive health." She then pulled out a flash drive. "And finally, Exhibit C, Arthur anticipated his older grandchildren's greed, so he insisted we record the signing of the will." Eleanor played the video on the courtroom monitor. There was Grandpa Arthur sitting in his favorite armchair, looking directly into the camera. He was sharp, lucid, and thoroughly annoyed. "I'm recording this because I know Kyle and Chloe are going to try to sue Eli," Grandpa's gruff voice echoed through the silent courtroom. "They are vultures. They haven't visited me since 2022. Eli gave up his 20s to wipe my chin and listen to my war stories. If Kyle or Chloe tries to contest this will, let the record show I am of sound mind, and I am cutting them out because they are selfish. Entitled brats." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Chloe had her face buried in her hands. Kyle looked like he was going to vomit. The judge didn't even need to deliberate. She threw the case out with prejudice, scolded my siblings for wasting the court's time, and ordered them to pay my legal fees. It's been 6 months since the gavel dropped. Kyle had to sell his sports car to cover the legal debt he owed Eleanor. Chloe's husband filed for divorce when he realized the massive inheritance she'd promised him to cover her credit card debt didn't exist. They both tried to text me pseudo-apologies a few weeks ago. I left them on read and blocked their numbers. As for me, I didn't buy a mansion or a yacht. I kept the farmhouse just the way Grandpa liked it. But I took the massive barn out back and completely renovated it. Last month, we officially opened the Arthur Family Trade Workshop, a fully funded, free community center that teaches local teenagers carpentry, auto repair, and machining. I teach the introductory auto mechanic class. Every morning, I walk in, smell the motor oil, look up at the plaque with Grandpa's name on it, and smile. Karma doesn't always come around, but when it does, it pays in full.